Hey guys, Tanks here. And this time we're taking a look at an upcoming MMO from a game studio that's canceled more projects than it's launched. Today we're talking about Amazon Game Studios' New World. While Amazon doesn't exactly have a shining record in the video game industry as of yet, it's hard to ever count Globocorp Amazon and their trillions of dollars of net worth out of anything. And then there's the fact that New World is actually pretty damn good. Despite its numerous, persistent, and increasingly aggravating bugs, New World manages to present an entire package that is rather enticing for a surprisingly wide variety of players. Thanks to its fantastic art and world design, wandering around in search of enemies to fight and resources to gather is a pleasant and engaging gameplay loop that has left me and many others eagerly awaiting our next opportunity to play New World. And one of the biggest reasons I'm personally excited to play more of New World is because of its combat, which feels really close to excellent. The combat mechanics, which revolve around a classless system where your abilities are tied to the weapons you equip, feel pretty great. The combat has solid weight, and enemies are well balanced to provide engaging gameplay for a variety of player types. The ranged weapons like the bow, musket, or ice gauntlets play in a way that should satisfy shooter fans, especially people who enjoy Destiny or Anthem gameplay. While the melee combat plays out in a fashion more akin to Dark Souls than standard MMO combat designs. The melee weapons available to players have great heft and nuance to them that makes the wide variety of them exciting for players who like to experiment and tweak their playstyles. And while there is only one support item, the game does utilize the Holy Trinity system featuring tanking, healing, and DPS group roles. All of this combines with an enjoyable crafting and gathering system that makes for a game that should appeal to many players. And it's all wrapped in a 3-faction PvP system where players battle it out for control over the territories to reap the rewards for their faction. All in all, I think New World will be a great game for getting your whole crew together to play because of the wide-reaching appeal of its core loop, at least for a time. But the question is, how long will New World maintain the attention of its audience? And I think the answer to that is not terribly long. I expect most players will feel more or less done with New World after around 20 to 60 hours of gameplay, which really isn't bad for a $40 purchase price, but when you put that in the context of the MMO genre, it's hardly any time at all. I imagine most players who get sucked into New World enough to play for multiple sessions will probably get a solid couple of weeks of entertainment out of it, depending on how hardcore of a gamer they are and their average play session lengths, before getting to the point where there won't be much left for them to do that they haven't already done. And this is due to the issues that New World has now that will likely remain a problem for some time, and that's a lack of content, or at least a lack of variety of content. New World is astonishingly polished in many ways, but it still manages to feel like an unfinished product at the same time. This is due, in part, to a massively disappointing lack of variety. One of New World's biggest issues from my perspective. Apparently, the game originally featured enemies that were deemed culturally insensitive, so that might provide some explanation for the incredible lack of diversity of enemy types in the open beta build, but it certainly doesn't excuse them from the copy and paste nature of all of their quests and areas. I played New World for roughly 20 hours during the recent open beta test, reaching level 20 while casually wandering around the game world and just soaking in the experience. While doing so, I noticed a whole lot of the same things over and over again. This is especially true for mob types, but also the areas where the enemies reside. All of the little hamlets scattered throughout New World feel like carbon copies of one another, as do the denizens of each ramshackle town. This is also true for other area types, like the 50 beached shipwrecks you're sent to, or the 19 wolf dens. You spend a lot of time in New World fighting a small variety of enemy types in areas that all kind of look like the ones you were just in, resulting in a lot of predictability and not a lot of intrigue. The quests that you're sent out on all feel like the same exact quests you just did too, and when all the questing areas, mobs, and tasks look the same, it all just sort of blends together into an almost deja vu-like series of mundane repetitions. This sense of mundanity is further magnified by a fun yet ultimately shallow weapon talent progression system, which seems appealing at first, but fails to provide enough meaningful choices for the total scope of the game. Which brings me to New World's classless weapon system. There are 11 total weapon classes in the game, which sounds like a lot, but all of your abilities are tied to your weapons, and each weapon only has 6 abilities, of which you can only choose 3 to have available to you in combat. And with players being able to wear and swap between 2 weapons, that leaves you with only 6 combat abilities, plus light and heavy attacks. This isn't a lot, especially considering how shallow New World's weapon attack combos system is. The total tally puts the entire number of combat abilities available in this game at 66, and that's assuming every single weapon is viable, and every ability within every weapon is also viable. And the reality of video games, as most of us know, is that balancing is hard. hard, if not impossible, and the likelihood of every weapon and every ability being viable is incredibly low. And this will and has already led to meta builds and tier lists that further narrow down a competitive player's selection of weapons and therefore abilities. This can be fixed by adding more abilities to choose from and even allowing players to have more abilities available to them in combat as well, like maybe 4 or 5 abilities per weapon, or placing abilities on each hand and allowing for dual wielding combinations like Guild Wars 2 did. A game that revolves around its combat and PvP mechanics thrives off of allowing players to demonstrate their skill and cunning, but a game like New World with so few abilities and player choice in terms of build diversity is destined to be a short-lived thrill ride without some serious plans for post-launch content drops. But New World is still struggling to squash persistent audio bugs, evade bugs, and all kinds of random bugs before launch. And Amazon's track record of supporting their games after launch is such that I have nearly equal measures of doubt as I have faith in the future of New World. However, I do see some real potential in this game, and I'm eager to play more of it when it comes out, even if it does get delayed a few more times before then and I only end up playing it for a week or two. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for now, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.